My daughter, 19, and her father had a strained relationship. My husband was the stricter parent and definitely had his flaws, but he loved her and was never abusive. My daughter also has had her fair share of problems, being diagnosed with bipolar, high-functioning autism, and anger issues. My husband passed away in a tragic accident 3 weeks ago. Burying my first and only love was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I returned to work on Monday, and my daughter stayed at home working on her art and applying to some jobs. When I returned home, everything that had belonged to my husband was gone. She had thrown it all away, even our wedding album. I checked several local dumpsters, but it's all gone. It must have been a thought-out all-day project. I asked her why she did it and she said that, if there were no reminders of him then I would stop being sad and focus on her again. I can't stop crying and can barely function now. I have called out of work every day since Monday and will probably lose my job. I have been frantically calling therapists and psychologists, but none of them have openings until the end of September. My daughter has a therapist, but he says it would be a violation of her privacy to have us all meet together and discuss what happened unless she agreed to it, which she hasn't. My mother offered to take in my daughter for the time being. I accepted her offer for many reasons and she will pick up my daughter on Sunday. My daughter knows this and hasn't told me that she has a problem with it, but she has problems expressing her emotions, so I really don't know. I'm also very nervous leaving her alone in this house alone when I return to work and my mother is retired so she can keep an eye on her. However, some of my family believe that I am choosing material possessions over my daughter at this difficult time and uprooting her from her support system. I didn't view it that way at first. I saw it as doing something for the ultimate greater good because I don't think I can be a kind, considerate, attentive mother at this time. I love her more than the world and know that she will be in great hands at my mother's house 5 hours away. My relatives have really doubled down, though saying it isn't fair to burden my mother in her retirement and that I'm a crap mother. So, am I the idiot for sending my daughter to live with my mother for the time being? Not the idiot. They weren't material possessions, they were linked to your husband whose death was very sudden and very recent, and you've barely even begun to grieve. Having those objects to hold on to would have helped you tremendously, and your daughter stole those comfort objects from you and isn't even sorry. I do encourage you to get therapy as soon as you can. As for your daughter, it sounds like she might need something a lot more intense than the therapy she is currently getting. Not the idiot. If she's lashing out against you and your things like this, then some separation probably what's healthiest for both of you. You're not putting material possessions before your daughter, you're getting physical and emotional distance that you need to preserve your relationship in the long run. Your family sees this as you punishing her, when really it's doing what's best for both of you. She needs a change of scenery and closer supervision, and you need to be able to feel safe going to work. Not the idiot. You have experienced a triple blow, the loss of your husband, the loss of things that remind you of him, and intentionally abominable treatment by your daughter. People have given all sorts of advice about and assessments of the emotional side of this situation. I'll focus on the practical. Someone helped your daughter remove your husband's things. Figure out who, and you may find the things. The list of people who would help her do this is short. She may have lied to them, insisting it was done at your request. I hope you are able to recover some of your husband's things. My daughter, 19, is going through a tough time. On top of the obvious difficulties of the pandemic, she has been struggling with depression. Her classes are all online, so she lives with us. My husband and I are both working from home, so we are very involved with her day to day. We do our best to engage her, family walks, game night, cooking together, but she is still feeling pretty down. She sees a therapist online, but I am not privy to how that is going. In the last couple days, she has been displaying a lot of resentment over her childhood. I'm specifically talking about ages 12 to 14. During those years, her father, my husband, was diagnosed with prostate cancer and was going through aggressive chemo. He has recovered enough to live a normal life. I won't lie, those were very tough years for our family. My daughter is an only child and was used to our full attention and engagement. It was a hard transition for her to have her father not be able to care for her like he used to, and myself having to split my time between her and my husband. We had a lot of support from our family, and we were able to maintain her lifestyle with their help. She didn't have to quit any teams, she never missed school. I do acknowledge that emotionally there was damage, so we did family therapy for years. Yesterday she was in a bad mood. During dinner, I asked her what was going on, and she went into this explosive rant about how many issues she developed due to us. Apparently, we are responsible for her grades slipping, her relationships failing, her weight gain, etc. She tied it all back to her missing crucial development during the years where her father had cancer. At one point she says something like, "Has it ever occurred to you that maybe you should apologize? You basically deprived me of a childhood." My husband says, "I'm sorry honey, I could have done better and I could have done more for you." I shut that down and told her, "No, you are not going to guilt your father into apologizing for having cancer. This is unacceptable. You need to accept that life is not fair and there is very little we can do about it. Go to your room and calm yourself down." She told me to go screw myself and went to her room. My husband and I have been arguing about how this was handled. He thinks that an apology is not big deal and he was hurt by what she said, but that he could take it. I think that she is looking for someone to blame for her current unhappiness and that we, as her parents, are easy targets. I also know that my husband already feels a great deal of guilt for putting our family through so much turmoil. I love my daughter and want her to be happy. At the same time, I do believe she is at an age where she needs to take on personal accountability. Am I the idiot here? Not the idiot. Your daughter is trying to avoid improvement by telling herself two self-destructive things. That she is somehow irreparably harmed, so it's not worth trying to do better, and it's her parents' fault, thus she is not responsible for her own mistakes. This is not the path to health. You can apologize for the ways that you or your husband did not handle yourselves well during his illness. But you are completely right that you cannot allow her to follow a line of thinking where she gets to tell herself that her life is ruined because her dad got cancer. Not the idiot. She has become spoiled to the point of not having any empathy for what your husband has gone through. You need to figure out how to either get her to see this or be prepared for a very difficult journey with her. It is easy to blame parents. You take for granted that they love you no matter what. Some forget love doesn't mean they like you as a person. Maybe time to join in on her counseling sessions to figure out why in the world she thinks anyone would be responsible for having cancer. No idiots here. Your daughter is an adult who is dealing with complex crap. She blew up, and while it sounds like it was possibly idiot behavior, it sounds like she's doing her best overall, and this is an isolated incident. You and your husband had two different ideas on how to handle that outburst, both fairly common, and neither is actually more correct. Sometimes it's easier to say sorry, sometimes hard truths are better, but it's impossible to know for sure. I don't think I should tell you, your husband or your daughter, where to go from here. But good luck anyway. Evelyn is 9 and she's been testing boundaries lately. My husband and I do not spank, we do timeouts, take away privileges, and talk things through. Lately, she has begun saying rude, insulting things out of the blue. These comments range from critiques on clothing to criticisms of weight or other physical features. Absolutely rude statements that my husband and I would never say about anyone, ever. Whenever she has made these sorts of comments, we have had serious discussions with her about how inappropriate and hurtful they are, and we urge her to think before she speaks next time. Tonight I got home from work early and decided to cook dinner and let my husband sleep in. He works nights and usually cooks dinner due to our schedules. I made beef stew from scratch. Nothing fancy, but we all enjoy it. I seasoned it as I always do, with salt, pepper, thyme, and a bay leaf. I felt good about cooking for my family and didn't even take the time to change out of my work scrubs before I began. My husband woke up to the smell of stew cooking and he was so happy about the surprise. Evelyn even said it smelled good. Then we began to eat. It was good, tasted just like always. My husband complimented it. Then Evelyn chimed in. "No offense, Mom, but this stew is really bitter. Maybe next time only use half a bay leaf." I stared at her for a good 10 seconds, my jaw on the floor. I had just worked a 12-hour shift at the hospital and come home to cook her dinner from scratch, only to have her insult my cooking. I honestly wasn't sure how to react. I was hurt and angry, but I don't like to raise my voice, and just talking to her about these statements in the past hasn't changed her behavior. The thing is, if the stew really was bitter, I would have laughed about it and told her that bay leaves don't make things bitter and maybe gone through possible ingredients that could have made it turn out that way. But the stew wasn't bitter. My husband agrees, it tasted completely normal. I checked, and the bay leaf wasn't in her bowl, it was still in the pot on the stove. She was just trying to come up with some way to insult me. So when I was finally able to respond, I quietly said, if you don't like the stew, you don't have to eat it. Please take your bowl to the kitchen and get in the bath. You may eat breakfast in the morning. Now she's sobbing in her room about how unfair I am, and my husband thinks maybe I went too far. I was hoping that maybe the discomfort of going hungry for one night will remind her to watch her words in the future. What if she had said this to my elderly mother instead of me? What if she had said something cruel to one of her peers and destroyed their friendship? I don't know how else to get through to her that words can cut deeper than any hunger pangs. Taking away the meal she insulted seemed like a fitting way to help her understand, but did I go too far? Am I the idiot? You're the idiot, sort of. This is actually biology at work. From 9 to roughly 13, kids' testosterones are changing, and they often become more sensitive to certain things, one of which is bitterness. On top of that, girls are even more likely to prefer sweeter flavors and dislike bitter notes. You have roughly 1/3 of the working testosterone she has, so it is entirely possible she tasted something bitter, and even if it's a little bit, it would appear amplified to her. Firstly, why are you cooking in your work scrubs? That's just gross. Secondly, children taste things differently than adults. Did you consider at all that it actually did taste bitter to her? Children are highly sensitive to bitter tastes until they hit adolescence. Thirdly, you punished her because you expected a 9-year-old to fawn all over your meal, and instead she was honest with you, and your ego couldn't take it. She was right about the bay leaves. They can make your dish bitter if they're cooked too long. You couldn't taste it, she could. You owe her an apology. You're the idiot. So, she's not allowed to share her opinion. Just because it didn't taste bitter to you doesn't mean it didn't to her. Instead of talking to her about how it made you feel and letting her add more salt and pepper or something, you punished her by withholding food. That's never a good punishment unless you want her to fear her food will be taken away every time she says something you don't like. It feels like you wanted to hurt her, not just punish her. You're the idiot. I'm divorced. My ex and I have a 9-year-old and 14-year-old who we co-parent amicably. Weeks here in the school district, weekends and holidays at his new place. When we got married we shared similar financial goals in terms of saving and spending. Pretty standard stuff that we took vacations and made indulgences occasionally but saved for the basics like emergencies, college payments, and retirement. A while ago he got remarried to a woman whose philosophy is, I'm quoting here, spend it if you've got it because you can't take it with you. When we initially divorced I didn't request any alimony because our spending and saving goals were identical and he was caring for them for plenty enough time. Any extra money he sent my way would just get saved up anyways, which at the time is what he was doing with it. Now he's buying sports cars, new computers, timeshare properties, all kinds of lavish stuff that he could only afford if he didn't have kids. His second wife has older kids, 21, 26, and is essentially of the mindset that they're on their own after 18, and why should she be saving for their lives when they can work? He is no longer making contributions to the college fund and has blown through a good portion of the savings money we set aside for the kids. I work, but he makes significantly more, as I took time off after each birth to care for the children, which set me back quite a bit in terms of advancement. This significantly impacts what we'll be able to pass down to our children in the long run after we die. In the short run it's already impacted daily life. Our 14-year-old qualified for a private STEM high school, but cannot attend because her dad cannot make the payments. When she asked why she wouldn't be attending the school I told her that her dad couldn't make his half of the payment and it was too much for me to cover independently. She said that did not make sense because she knows he has a more high-powered job and nicer material goods than I do, so I told her, in an age-appropriate manner, that he'd chosen to spend the money elsewhere. My ex is calling me the idiot for telling her this, saying I should have made something up or told her to ask him about it. On the one hand, I really don't feel comfortable lying to my daughter about matters that directly concern her. On the other, I feel like an idiot for saying anything that gets in between their relationship. Am I the idiot for telling her the real circumstances behind not attending the school? Not the idiot. I went through something similar when I was her age. My mom didn't tell me because she didn't want me to think less of my father. However, my grandmother told me the truth about that and the rest of the finances. I was then, and I am now, very appreciative in the decades since that my grandmother told me the truth. I had no illusions about my father. Additionally, my mother was glad too that I knew the truth. Please look into getting the proper amount of child support and alimony. Good luck to you. Not the idiot, but you would be the idiot if you don't take this man to court to protect your daughter's future. He has a responsibility to her, and you didn't get it in writing during the divorce because at the time he was being responsible and doing the right things. Now he's not doing the right thing and you need to get the courts involved so they will order him to pay for her schooling and to contribute to her college fund. She should not have to suffer because he's decided buying shiny things for his new wife is more important than his daughter's future. Not the idiot. Your ex should not have put you in this position. Your daughter is 14, she's old enough to understand important matters such as her education. I suppose it's theoretically possible you could have handled this in a somehow better way, but hindsight is 20/20, and you can't tell a teenager let me answer this question tomorrow after I've had time to think of how to put a positive spin on the answer. If your ex wanted to control the narrative, it's a conversation he should have had with his daughter. I, 32, have a 12-year-old daughter. She splits time between my house and my ex-husband's, her father's, house. Her father is a huge American football fan and like the local team. My daughter also is a fan of that team, and on Sundays, she's at my house will watch their games and FaceTime with her father. Tonight their favorite team is playing a playoff game. It is my night with my daughter. About a week ago my ex messaged me and asked if he could pick up our daughter so he could take her to the game. When I checked the weather it was supposed to be freezing, at or below zero, so I said I wouldn't be comfortable with her actually going to the game, but if he wanted they could watch the game together at his house. He agreed and said they wouldn't be going to the game and picked her up last night. Today I saw on one of our friends' social media that she, him, and a few other people were going to the game and my daughter was as well. I immediately was pissed at him and sent him a message asking where they were and if he was taking her to the game. He said he was, and that he had gotten really good tickets for a cheap price and couldn't turn them down. I told him he had no right to lie to me about what he was doing with my daughter and that was the last time we were rearranging our times with her. He said I was overreacting and she wanted to go and was looking forward to it. He said I was making a big deal out of nothing and he could do whatever he wanted. I was still very upset and told him was risking our daughter's health for a football game and that he was being an awful co-parent. He didn't respond, except for telling me I was being ridiculous. Am I the idiot for being upset? You're the idiot. If you live in this part of the country, it's not like your daughter has never experienced this weather before and she's a fan herself and wants to go to the game. If you live where there are sub-zero temps, you've probably also heard the phrase there is no bad weather, only bad clothing. It's perfectly possible to dress properly for this kind of weather and not risk your health. The stadium is going to be full of 70,000 people doing exactly that, along with a few drunk idiots who will decide to take their shirts off. You're the idiot. He lied, yes, but he did it because he wanted to share a special bonding moment with his daughter. His motivation wasn't bad. You, on the other hand, what's your motivation? You know people go skiing when it's below freezing out, right? And sledding, and we build snowmen. They had the ability to just get up and leave if they got too cold. I suspect you're jealous that she got to do something huge and memorable that she really enjoyed. And you don't like that it didn't involve you. You're the one doing co-parenting badly. Everyone's the idiot here. Except for the kid. Him only cause he shouldn't have lied. He also shouldn't have needed to. You for being over-controlling. Zero is perfectly fine weather to do things outdoors, that's what winter clothing and outdoor gear is for. It sounds like you just wanted to get in the way of their activity and you come off as sounding resentful they share this interest. I'm getting really strong vibes of that mom complaint post earlier that her ex wanted the kid for a birthday dinner.